Well, greetings everybody. Welcome to the 2021 version of Church and School Employee Safety. We took a year off last year for obvious reasons. We're coming through a pandemic. There were a lot of question marks about that, and a lot of our private schools worked kind of a hybrid schedule, off and on, and we didn't know who would be back, and so we didn't do this last year. But this year, we're kind of picking up where we left off 2 years ago, and really not much has changed in terms of the topics for today. We have about 30 minutes, and I think it'll give you a good overview about how to avoid getting injured. 2021 is a little bit of an interesting year though, because we're all a year older, and I don't know about you, but the COVID-15 maybe got to me a little bit this year. I blame DoorDash for that, by the way. It's not my fault, but the COVID-15 may have afflicted a few of us. Another year on this earth maybe made us a little bit more susceptible to getting hurt. But one of the things that I think is very interesting to track is the injuries this year in Major League Baseball. Believe it or not, I think that could be a precursor to what could be happening across a lot of industries. In 2020, Major League Baseball played a hybrid, very abbreviated schedule, and this year they've come back to a full schedule, and they have the most injury rates of any year in the last 50 years in Major League Baseball. So I'm a little concerned about going back full speed ahead in the fall, but I also think avoiding getting injured is a very simple process, and basically you've got to focus on pretty much the areas that we're going to talk about in this year's safety session. And over the years, over the past 10 or 15 years, we've filmed a ton of vignettes showing people how they get hurt, and you know, we're not going to redo that this year because it's 110 degrees outside right now, and we're just going to give you this good introduction, and then you can go about and watch and learn, and hopefully get through this upcoming school year with minimal or no injuries on your campuses. So take a listen and take a watch and sit back and enjoy. Okay, so over the years we've gone to great lengths to get everybody that watches these videos to remember what is in them. We've had people arrested. I've been in high heels. We've had people get hit in the head with balls. I fired a lot of people right on camera. Lots of people fired. Matter of fact, when I walk on campuses, they ask me if they're fired. But we're going to go to Sesame Street today. Because there are 5 things that are present with almost every single injury that happens. 5 things, physical and mental. And essentially this is what they are. Age, okay? We go through a lot of stages with age where when you're 21 to 25, you're indestructible. You'll do anything, and that creates risks. When you're 25 to 35, you still think you're 16. When you're 35 to 50, you don't understand that you're putting your body at risk. When you're 50 to 65, you start to get some wisdom, and we see injury rates going down. So age is a big factor. You gotta know, you have to understand age and the way you relate to that. The second thing is being in a hurry. The third thing is being distracted. The fourth thing is trying to do too much by yourself, working alone. And the fifth thing really is being careless, or just not caring about the issue of safety. And one thing we all have to understand is that workers' comp is like a payroll tax. But if we use it, if we have injuries, if we get hurt, that tax goes up. And if we don't use it, it goes down. We'll talk about that in just a second. So how many things?
Give me 5 now, 5 on the clock. 5 on the clock. 5 fingers on the hand. 5 fingers on the hand. We got 5 on the block. 5 on the block. And a 5 in the sand. 5 in the sand.
5 things. Age, being distracted, trying to do too much, being a little bit careless at times or not caring enough at times, okay? And the last thing is being in a hurry. So that's what I want you to remember today. Those 5 things are present. prior to almost every single injury.
No jive! No jive! No jive! No jive! Yo, 5! Yo, jive!
Okay, no matter what kind of campus you are on, things like this are going to happen. You're going to have tree roots, you're going to have settling, because clearly you've got concrete and roots and things like that pushing this up. So I've just pushed this back down, but really there's got to be a fix for things like this that needs to happen even before we come out and inspect your facilities. And you're going to have that sort of thing. This campus has been here for 30 years, and these kind of conditions are going to come up. The key is not to ignore them or not to think, hey, it's not my responsibility to point them out. The key is to make sure that we do point them out and that we let our maintenance and our repair people know that this is a trip and fall hazard, and this could really imperil not only kids but staff members as well. So what you're about to see is a classic case of distracted walking in a parking lot. And this is why we have claims in parking lots, because people can't put their phones down for longer than 2 seconds in order to get from the parking lot into work. I think Jim could, either he's texting or checking his Instagram right now, but either way, he's probably fired. Okay, whether you're in a large church or in a performing arts center with students, the stage is an increasingly important part of our everyday life in worship, performing arts, our curriculum. But the stage also provides us with a unique hazard in the fact that it is a very busy place. Oftentimes there are not handrails on the stage, so we're negotiating up and down stairs without the benefit of being able to hold on. There are lots of cords, there are lots of equipment. We see an increasingly high number of accidents setting up for performances or for Sunday worship, or tearing down after either of those events. And so I want to make you aware of this hazard, because a lot of times if we're involved in setting up or tearing down a stage, we're not really specifically trained to do that. And yet if you look, you can see that there are parts of this stage where there is a severe drop-off. And so we really have to be careful to know where we're at all times. And of course, when there are people up here, it's even more hazardous and more crowded, because now you've added even more opportunities to trip and fall or to have some sort of an accident. But increasingly, working in a church or in a performing arts center, working on setting up and taking down after Sunday or Wednesday worship or after a play or a musical, it's becoming an area we've got to be concerned about. So make sure that anybody working in these areas is properly trained and briefed, and you take 5 to 10 minutes and talk about the overall safety risks and ways to avoid getting hurt when working in a setting like this.
Today we're going to show you how to properly lift one person and a two-person lift. And it's very important when you're about to lift, you come up on your load and figure out, hey, is this something I can lift on my own? Important to squat like a baby, like Reggie is showing right here. And when he lifts that load, he is going to have it close to his body, and his chin is going to be up. That helps the body lift straighter and reduce the possibility of having a back injury.
So here we have the wrong way to lift. Notice how his legs are straight. He's not bending his legs. Plus, he's bending over at the waist. We have what we call a lever effect on the lower back because he's using his back like a crane. In addition to that, his head is down. We want to make sure that the head is up. That way the spine will stay in what we call the neutral position, not bent over.
We also have to talk about a two-person lift. While you're sizing up your situation in terms of you know, how heavy it is or awkward, you might have to get help. And this is where people get in trouble because they don't ask for help. Getting help, first, you have to communicate. You have to have a plan. What are we going to do? 1, 2, 3, lift. Both persons have to lift correctly, have to lift at the same time. Reg, we're going to go and pick up this box. We're going to squat. So go ahead and stand on that side. Spread your legs a little bit. There you go. Squat. And on the count of 3, we're going to lift at the same time. 1, 2, 3.
I'm glad it's not more complicated than that, really.
Me too. Me too. And to make it even simpler on a prevention standpoint, it seems like we've had quite a few claims coming in where lights were not turned on in a room that somebody is walking through.
We do address that, don't we, in the sessions?
Right now, we have the exposure of, with teachers coming back and expecting kids on campus, the setting up of the rooms again.
Right.
You know, getting the room ready, getting papers on the wall and pictures and things like that. And when we see things like that, we see teachers taking risks, I think, out of just the urgency to be completed.
To get things
done. Yeah. And so a proper ladder is not obtained. They stand on a chair. And unfortunately, we see them fall off that chair.
Or even when they're on a ladder, they'll lean way over and the ladder falls. Some people, you get on chairs even that have wheels on them. We've seen that.
Yeah, we've seen that as well.
Yeah. So August is really kind of a bellwether month. People coming back, and we're just kind of holding our breath, waiting to see claims and injuries fly in. I really hope it's kind of a quiet August this year.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. And I've been telling some clients that I hope that their teachers, in a sense, become a little selfish, take a little extra time,
right,
so that they can enjoy their time with the kids when they come back rather than recovering from an injury.
Yeah. It's hard to say really how all of this has affected the workforce in our church and school clients. I know that we have a lot of our schools have waiting lists right now. I think they probably have had to hire a lot of people. There may have been some retirements in the last year. I understand a lot of people in the last year have moved out of California altogether. So a lot of you could be seeing this presentation for the first time and you know, probably not even realizing that there are situations that you get into where there could be a little bit of risk to your personal health. And, you know, we laugh and joke a lot about the kids being one of the biggest hazards on a campus, but you know, unfortunately we have to have them there. And so, you know, and they don't always respect our personal space. You know?
That is very true.
Yeah. So you wind up seeing teachers or you know, church staff tripping and falling over some of the kids running around.
Over the kids, over backpacks. I would urge people not to walk backwards.
Yep. Yep. All right. If you've ever seen the Allstate commercials featuring mayhem, this is it. Why are we sitting in a dark room doing anything? Well, because from time to time, some of you walk into dark rooms and try to navigate your way across the room, and inevitably something like this happens. Well, this is we call this kind of an unforced error. I don't want to let you in on anything too secret, but when we see injuries come through, we'll do a little bit of eye rolling on these. Why? There's a light switch right next to the door. And guess what? Did you know you're all carrying a flashlight? Right here, flashlight. Every single phone has a flashlight. So folks, let's not commit unforced errors. Use light when you walk into a room. This has been Mayhem on behalf of all, no. This is not what you want to do when you're setting up in your classroom this fall, because this guy right here is playing with fire, okay? No tables, no bookshelves, no chairs, step ladders and ladders only. Caught him in the act. This is live footage, folks.
I'm an example of what not to do.
Now, setting up for school can be an exciting time of the year or a time of the year where people wind up hurting themselves. Now, earlier we saw a gentleman standing on a bookshelf, kind of spread out and off balance. This is the proper way to decorate your classroom, folks. Up on a step ladder, straight up and down. Now, let me show you something you don't want to do, okay? And that's this. You don't want to get up on this ladder like this and then start reaching out over here, right? You don't want to do that. Why? Because I could fall right down. So what you saw there was proper, getting up on the ladder and being straight. If you need to move the ladder, just move it. I guarantee you, just the couple of seconds that you save by doing this is going to result in you not falling off the ladder. So you need to move the ladder as you're working. Don't stand on tables, don't stand on chairs.
Whether you're in a large or small or medium-sized church or school, you're going to have people doing administrative functions, and they're going to be using computers and technology. And this presents kind of a particular hazard, and that is the hazard of ergonomics and the workspace. So what we see out there is that people injure themselves by working to the point where they're uncomfortable, and they'll continue to work and work and work until they actually have an injury. So what we do is we advise people on some basic principles of ergonomics to make sure they're comfortable when they're in their workspace.
Yeah, and those principles really are seen in three areas. What's the height of the chair? Where's the keyboard? And where's the monitor? A lot of folks don't realize that all three are adjustable. Everybody is different. So I would just be aware of your environment and know that you can make adjustments to those three areas.
Yeah. And so one of the things I like right here is this mouse, which is a different mouse than you typically see. But this is there for the particular issue that the person that sits here has. And this relieves the pressure on their thumb in particular. So this is a good example of an accommodation. But the main point is that if you have discomfort associated with working in front of a computer, that you say something, because it's easy to come out and make evaluations and make adjustments so that you can work comfortably.
The angle that we should have our arms, especially the lower arm, resting on the keyboard, should be at a 90-degree angle when you're looking at the angle right where your bicep is. Now, the other thing to look at is to make sure that the monitor height is proper. Ideally, we want to make sure that the monitor is equal to the level of your eye.
Okay, one of our top 4 ways to avoid getting injured is to simply avoid sports and avoid horseplay. Now, the sports example applies to coaches. The horseplay example applies primarily to youth pastors. But as you see in the video, a soccer coach out doing a full-speed demonstration of a technique just blew her Achilles tendon. Every year we have 4 to 6 of these, 4 to 6 ACLs, 4 to 6 rotator cuffs. And a lot of our coaches in our schools are stipended. They're not full-time. They may not even be watching this video right now. Coaches should not be allowed to do full impact, full speed demonstration. The 8 words that send shivers up my spine, let me show you how to do that. No, if you're going to show somebody how to do something in sports, you've got to do it in slow motion. Coaches, I think some bad news for you. If you're 22 years old or older, you're already washed up. Your body is in a severe state of decline, whether you want to admit it or not. That's just a fact. So we want to avoid sports injuries by coaches. They are a plague on the entire system in Christian schools. Now, the other thing that we want to do is we want to really monitor our youth programs. Our youth pastors are out there doing all kinds of crazy stuff. They're the least likely to care about safety or risk management, generally. It's probably the furthest thing from their mind. So they're involved in all kinds of extreme activities as well. But it even goes beyond sports and youth activities. It goes out to that teacher that just innocently goes to kick a ball. Maybe it's the only time they've done that in 30 years on the playground, and yet that one time they get hurt. So horseplay,
sports, playground, all hazardous places, all places where we need to really work to avoid getting hurt.
So I think one of the unique things that we were facing last year that created a lot of uncertainty, Matt, was this COVID-19 virus. And I remember in the very beginning, it was a little terrifying because of all the hype. We didn't know how this is transmitted. We don't know how serious it was. And I think there was a lot of panic in the workers' comp system. There was even some rules that said if somebody got the virus, it would be presumed that they got it at work.
That is true.
And so that created some fear in the industry because people thought, what if we have billions and billions of dollars of claims from COVID, which didn't wind up happening.
Correct.
But how do you think COVID going forward is going to be impacting the system?
Well, there's still the requirement that upon notice of an employee testing positive for COVID, that a report has to be made to either the work comp carrier or, in this case, the third-party administrator, LWP.
Mm-hmm.
So that still has to be done. As of today, there is still a presumption that it was work-related. However, it is a rebuttable presumption that necessitates investigation.
Yeah, so what that means is that if somebody gets COVID and they've been at work in the past week or so, they're just going to say they got it at work, even though we don't know how the virus was transmitted.
It's going to be presumed.
It's going to be presumed. So we just want to make sure that everybody takes all the precautions that are necessary. Now, some of that's been relaxed here this summer, and I think, throughout the whole pandemic, we got a lot of conflicting information about what was really necessary and what wasn't, and created a lot of confusion, and in some places a lot of anger. But going forward, what would you say just a couple of the best practices would be to prevent getting the virus?
I would recommend that if you're sick or if you have been around somebody who has tested positive for COVID, to not come to work.
I think that's the best way to keep an outbreak from happening. The last thing we want to have, after so much progress has been made and so much disruption has been managed, is to have a problem at one of our school or one of our church campuses. Usually very avoidable if people just are thinking of others first, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you have any kind of symptoms, even if it seems like a cold or kind of a minor allergy, I think you're going to want to just take a pause before you consider getting back around a lot of other people.
Especially a fever.
Especially a fever, yeah.
If you want to inspire a great debate in Christian schools, just talk about footwear. I'm telling you right now, wars have been fought over this issue. But as you go around campus, you'll see people wearing footwear that, maybe a little suspect for doing the job right and doing the job safe. As you're going to see, if you have improper footwear, you could wind up getting hurt.
Not only is this person walking downstairs carrying something but not holding a handrail, and if you look at their shoes, they really shouldn't be walking up and downstairs with those shoes because of the heel. So folks, hold the handrails when you're walking up and downstairs, and if you have to carry something, have somebody help you, please.
Summer is here and it's getting hot. As temperatures and humidity rise, it's important to be prepared for the dangers of working in the heat. Dozens of workers die every year due to working in the heat, and thousands become ill. Most work-related heat deaths occur in the first few days of working in the heat. That's why it's important for employers to allow workers to gradually build that tolerance to the heat, whether they are new, temporary, or even seasoned worker. Heat illness can affect anyone, no matter how old you are or what shape you are in. Symptoms include headache, nausea, dizziness, weakness, irritability, confusion, thirst, heavy sweating, and a body temperature greater than 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit. But heat illness can be prevented with 3 simple steps: water, rest, shade. Drink water every 15 minutes, even if you're not thirsty. Rest in the shade to cool down. Wear a hat and light-colored clothing. Workers can stay safe and healthy if we watch out for their health and remember 3 simple words: water, rest, and shade. Taking these precautions can mean the difference between life and death.
So I think, Matt, it might be a good time to refresh what somebody should do if they think they've been injured at work.
I'm going to give a very simplified answer here. And this answer not only points towards an injured employee, but it also points to the actual employer or member. Communicate. If you get injured at work, let your supervisor know about that injury. And if you need medical treatment, seek that medical treatment. For the employer, communicate. Communicate to the injured employee, communicate to the claims people, and communicate to your medical provider.
Yeah, and you know, I don't think we have a lot of fraud in our client base. People have done a good job of hiring people that really want to advance the mission of our churches and schools. What happens when there's a delay in a claim, though, is that it does lend itself to a high correlation of fraud. And this is one of the big reasons why we don't want people to delay saying something. Correct. Because a lot of times then probably a carrier is going to want to do a deeper dive into that situation, and we just don't need to get into that. We just need to be transparent and quick on our feet in terms of jumping on the issue.
A delay in reporting is a delay in recovery, a delay in care.
Yeah.
It just delays everything.
A lot of our clients have kind of forgotten that a workers' comp claim is kind of like a really bad hangover financially. These claims stay on a record for how long?
On the experience modification, it'll stay on for a period of 3 terms.
So 3 terms. So there's lingering financial issues when you have a claim that is significant. And I think even some of the ways they've changed the experience rating system have made claims a little bit more punitive now in the way they count.
They have, especially if you have frequency.
Right. So if you have a lot of claims or a lot of injuries, that's going to weigh more heavily against you than if you have less frequent claims. And, so this is a big issue because I think we forget sometimes that there are financial consequences to having workplace injuries. The people that pay the least amount of money for workers' comp are the ones that have the best safety records and the best claims practices.
That is very true.
So those are some of the fundamental rules of staying safe. And again, it's been a real interesting year, and I hope this has been very helpful to you to kind of understand your individual role in making sure that your campus goes injury-free this year. Have to remember that being injury-free over the long term isn't just good for you, but it's good for your ministry, and it's good for the costs that your ministry incurs for this insurance. And so that's really another big reason why you want to focus on this, take it seriously. Yes, we do try to include some humor in what we talk about because some of the situations that we've seen over the years are really funny. And, not so funny to the people that actually got hurt, but just funny to think about maybe what they were thinking about before they got hurt. But hopefully this has been a good learning experience for you, and as you go forward with this next school year, everybody does a good job and cooperates and remains injury-free.